While President Obama has stated that the U.S. will not place boots on the ground to combat ISIS, the question still remains, who then will go head-to-head against ISIS? French President François Hollande, while speaking at the conference in Paris, said, quote, "There is no time to lose," in reference to fighting the extremists. Hollande went on to call ISIS a global threat that requires a global response. He called for total support of the moderate rebels in Syria, or better known as the Free Syrian Army. And initially, he wanted to invite Iran and Syria to the conference, but that invite was met with U.S. objection. Now, earlier, I was joined by RT Arabic correspondent Rima Abu Hamdia, and I first got her reaction to this comment from former Congressman Ron Paul.
Well, it's actually crazy, you know, what we're doing. We're over there, we're going to fight ISIS, and ISIS is detested by Syria and Iran. So we don't want to even talk to them. They hate each other. If we walked out of there, maybe ISIS would be disappeared rather quickly. I mean, they're talking about 10 or 20,000, and they have millions of people, Muslims, but they won't dare get involved because I don't think they're going to get the troops. I don't think they're going to get the support. It's going to be all fall on us because they're going to say, well, yeah, we armed the Iraqi army, but the first attack by the radicals, they dropped all their weapons and ran. So they're going to defend this? So I would think that if you don't like ISIS, just walk away and Syria and Iran will take care of them and they'll get rid of all the radicals. Just as Saddam Hussein did. There was no al-Qaeda in Iraq and there's no al-Qaeda in Iran. So we shouldn't be so hypocritical that if we detest the radicals that do want to do harm, then just back away and somebody will take care of them. If they won't take care of them, us getting over there isn't going to help. We'd end up with another 10 or 15 years of saying, well, we have to contain and defeat the radicals, and it's just so foolhardy. I cannot believe that we persist on the same policy, which is now, as far as I'm concerned, 24 years old. Pretty soon we're going to have a 30-year war against the Middle East with no benefits coming of it.
Now, Rima, you just heard what Dr. Paul had to say. He basically just said, walk away. What's your reaction to this? Do you agree with Dr. Paul's assessment?
In many ways, I do agree with him. Why would you expect a different result to a 2.5-decade-old strategy? The U.S. has been doing the same thing over and over in the Middle East, and so far we see what the results are.
Right, and it's increased the negative outlook on what people think of the U.S. Is that right?
Exactly, and the rise of extremism on the other hand, and that's probably a bigger threat.
Now, on to the Syria subject, do you think that there's any chance of mission creep in Syria, since the U.S. is actually not seeking Syrian approval for these airstrikes? Could this turn into a way for the U.S. to contribute, to kind of start a proxy war there, to contribute to getting Assad out of office?
Just the fact that the U.S. does not want to work, the U.S. and other countries, I should say, do not want to work with the Syrian government and the Iranian government to coordinate with these governments in order to oust or to defeat ISIS tells people in the Middle East a lot of things. Why would you not want to work with these countries if your goal is actually to defeat ISIS? So a lot of people will raise a lot of questions when it comes to what is the real goal, what is the real objective of this mission? Is it really to defeat ISIS but without working with the governments involved, or is it to oust the regime in Syria?
So the people on the ground in the Muslim world, that's what they're talking about.
Yes, there's a lot of criticism to the way the U.S. is handling what's going to the strategy that the U.S. is proposing, is announcing to the world on how to, and I should say a lot of people in the Middle East do not really consider this a strategy. It's a half a strategy, as they call it.
Wow, okay. So now Western leaders, though, have said that they want troops on the ground, just not from the Westerners. They want Arab troops, local Arab countries, to contribute men, women, money, materials. They want them on the ground to fight ISIS. Is there a danger this could gin up ongoing Sunni-Shia conflicts?
A lot of obstacles to that. First of all, there is a Sunni-Shia conflict in the Middle East, and a lot of people would like to deny that, but this is the truth. There is a Sunni-Shia that, and a lot of regional powers are fueling that conflict in the Middle East right now. However, sending Arab troops to fight ISIS right now is going to be seen as part of the Sunni-Shia conflict in the Arab world. First of all. Second, the U.S. is saying that they're going to launch strikes from air without coordination with troops on the ground, and bearing in mind the language barrier at this point, how are they going to do that? So that adds to the problems on fighting ISIS in the region, especially in Iraq and Syria right now. A lot of obstacles to that narrative. Probably most important of which is, how do you get the Arab countries to agree on the type of troops that they're sending to Iraq and Syria?
Right, I'm glad you brought that up, because, for example, the UAE is actually stepping up a lot and offering, tactical equipment and troops, even some, air strikes even. But now the UAE is Sunni as well. ISIS is Sunni as well. What is that going to do to that kind of relationship in that region?
Well, a lot of people would not consider, in the Middle East, do not consider ISIS as Sunni, as part of the Muslim Sunni group. A lot of people consider them as infidels or all kinds of names. A lot of people do not see them as part of the Sunni. The Sunni, exactly. So I don't think that is the problem. The problem is getting these Arab countries to work together to defeat ISIS, to combat ISIS. How do you get UAE with the resources, the money,
yes,
to work with Egypt, a country that has its own problems? How do you get these countries, probably on the same side of the platform, to work with Qatar to combat ISIS?
Of those friendly nations there in the Gulf region, who do you see leading the way?
I don't see one country leading the way. I mean, Saudi Arabia has a lot at stake. It's probably the one that's going to call the shots in the region right now, given its relation with the U.S., given its relation with many of the Arab countries there. But I don't see this as a one country
leadership role. Not so much. Now, ISIS is drawing, obviously, the whole world's attention, but there are reports now saying that the Taliban and Al-Qaeda is using that the world's focus has shifted to those guys. They're using this as an opportunity to expand their own groups. How concerned should the U.S. be with potential returns of Al-Qaeda and Taliban?
Aren't they all the same in many ways? I mean, it doesn't it doesn't really matter if they rebrand themselves or if there is an offshoot here or there. The rebranding doesn't really change the core, the ideology of these groups. The U.S. and the West and every country should be concerned of these groups collectively, not just of one group. And the fact that ISIS is dominating the world stage right now should not be a carte blanche to the rest of those groups, and to the U.S. and the West and all the concerned countries to just say, oh, well, we're fighting on one front now. We can't do the rest of the fronts.
Don't lose sight of all of the rest either, because they're equally as bad.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. That was RT Arabic correspondent Rima Abu Hamdia. Thank you for your time.